President Trump telling Time magazine in an interview published this morning that President Xi has called him and his administration is in active talks with Beijing to strike a deal. But then in the last half hour, possibly in response to President Trump's comments in Time, China's embassy just said they are not having any talks on tariffs and that the U.S. should stop creating confusion. The interview with President Trump took place on Tuesday, but was only released this morning at 6 a.m. by Time magazine. Joining us right now to discuss all of this and try to make some sense of what could happen next, Kyle Bass, Heyman Capital Management founder and chief investment officer. So let's just start with your take in terms of, as an investor, how you should read, to the extent you do, Time magazine and then these comments from the Chinese embassy.
Well, glad to be here, Andrew. I have a little bit more insight than the Chinese embassy and or Time magazine, and I think it's important to note that I would believe the U.S. administration 10 times out of 10 if you were talking about what's true and what's untrue as far as what's happening behind the scenes. You have to understand, we import $440 billion worth of goods each year from China, and they import $140 billion from us. In a tit-for-tat trade war, we win every time, and I mean win, meaning the pain is much greater on their side than it is on our side. And so you have to remember, this negotiation is primarily about China. I know we're talking about resetting our trade relationships for the rest of the world. We essentially implemented a 10% across the board tariff on roughly 4 trillion of goods, a little less. And then in specific countries, we ratchet that up. And of course, China is the worst. They're 13% of our imports, but they're 25% of our deficit. They are clearly the focus of our trade negotiations. And
so, Kyle, if that's the case, well, I want to go backwards for just 1 second. I just want to go back to the who you believe story, which is, so your view is that the U.S. is in meaningful talks with China and that China is lying to its public and to our public that it is not in those talks.
I think that's likely the case. I think it's Chinese propaganda for them to say they're not engaged. They are panicked. And Andrew, think about this.
No. It's possible that they are. I believe, by the way, they are panicked. That is almost impossible not to believe. The question is whether they are engaged in talks. And the reason I ask that question is because you had Scott Bessent make comments earlier this week that were also suggestive that there were talks, and you had China effectively say that that was not true at that time either. And so it's very hard, I think, for the public to ascertain what, in fact, is really happening here.
What's really important to understand is China wants to save face. That's how they operate. We want a desirable outcome. And a desirable outcome here is a mutual back down, and a mutual back down moving the needle much further away from China's asymmetric favor and back to what would be considered to be fair trade. We're focused on fair. We're not focused on free. We are focused on fair. We are certainly having those conversations. China will never admit that we're having those conversations. They'll never admit to be, quote, the weak one in the negotiations, Andrew. They are certainly in the worst position in these negotiations.
So here's a separate question, and it really is about negotiating posture to some degree, which is, let's stipulate and agree. Long term, the U.S. should have more leverage in this than China does, right, on a rational basis. Having said that, it appears that China, at least historically, has been a more patient negotiator and just more patient and willing to take pain than the U.S. has been, in part because of the way our democracy works and in part because of the sort of ADD society that we all exist in. And so the question right now is, as these negotiations play out, whether you think we can and will want to hold out longer than they will.
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, you look to China. They said they grew 5.4% GDP last quarter. Their 10-year bonds are trading for 160, Andrew. Our 10-year bonds are trading at 440. Our short rates are 4%. Their short rates are in the ones. They have had a complete economic collapse. They have had a real estate collapse. Their banks are 3 times more levered than ours are. They have 2 banks with more assets than J.P. Morgan. And we have a 26% stake in the world economy, and China has like a 17% stake in the world economy. You have to realize they've only been at banking, real banking, since they ascended the WTO. So they are facing a banking crisis, a youth unemployment crisis, a real estate crisis. Their 10-year bonds are 160, and they're telling the world that they're growing at 5%. It's a complete lie. It's obvious. Bond markets don't lie, Andrew. Chinese leadership lies, but the bond markets don't lie. So again, you're asking me if we have more staying power. We're the largest consumer in the world. We are still 4% of the population and 26% of global GDP, and we are the largest consuming nation in the world. Certainly, we can outlast China. Are there a few places where things are going to be painful? Yes, they are. There is no easy button here. But we must reset our relationship with them. We must remove
let me ask you two related questions about the reset. One of the things we've also learned in the past 24 hours is that Apple, which is had a huge manufacturing business in China, is planning to potentially move the manufacturing piece of its iPhone business that gets imported to the U.S. from China to India. It believes that it potentially could do that within the context of maybe call it 12 to 18 months to get to India. What that also means, though, is they're not bringing iPhone manufacturing back to the U.S. Now, so I'm curious how you look at that. You may say that's a great thing because India is a better ally of ours, but they're not a perfect ally of ours. They're buying oil from Russia.
Yeah, like India is a very, very difficult story, but India is the largest democracy in the world. They have certainly reached out to us and want to be. I think an India trade agreement might be the first agreement that gets across the line. I think it'll be either India or Japan, and you'll see that very soon. So what we're trying to do is focus our sights on trading partners that actually share our values. We share none of the values of the Chinese Communist Party, Andrew. The one thing we want from them is cheap stuff. And the writing has been on the Great Wall for a long time. Look, Apple itself has moved a quarter of its iPhone production over the last 4 years from China to India. Now they're saying, now they really see the writing on the wall and they need to get out. And I think that's likely to happen. In the long run, Xi Jinping has told us since 2017 that he's going to take Taiwan. And he told us 4 times in 4 diplomatic visits in 2024. One of these days, we're all going to believe him. Now, I know our leadership and our military leadership believes him. One day, Wall Street's going to realize that we've been trading with the enemy for too long and that this full decoupling may happen. And so fully moving our supply chains away, I think, is a good idea if it's possible. And in some cases, I realize it's not possible. And those companies are going to have to face those realities when it happens.
Hey, Kyle, we spoke with Ambassador Burns earlier today, and he was of the opinion that, yeah, China has been the bad actor here. Just the way we've gone about this has allowed them to try and play a sympathy card, looking from other nations to say, be friends with us, be partners with us, when China is the one that has been doing all of this dumping, producing 2.5 times what they can themselves absorb domestically in lots of different industries. You sound like you're of the same opinion that we should be teaming up with our allies, our closest allies, and maybe not fighting a trade war on multiple fronts right now, focusing just on China. Would that be a fair assessment of your thoughts?
Look, it's my view that when you look at Mexico and Canada, 2 of our closest allies on the North American continent, people say, how can we possibly, tariff Mexico and Canada? Everything we're doing with Mexico and Canada is related to China. Number one, it's fentanyl. The Texas State Police have confiscated 360 million doses of fentanyl, enough to kill every single man, woman, and child in America in the last 4 years alone. That has to stop. That's all Chinese chemicals coming in to the Mexican cartels and moving across our border. And transshipments of cars and other goods is the balance of the increase in trade between the U.S. and Mexico and the U.S. and Canada. So believe it or not, our Mexico and Canada discussions are really solely focused on China. It's not really on Mexico and Canada. And so the answer, Becky, is I think the entire world is going to focus and have to choose between the Western values and a Chinese position in Southeast Asia. I actually think that's how this is going to play out.